I don't usually take the old walking path after dark, but last night, the fog rolled in so thick, the street lamps barely lit the sidewalk ahead of me. And there it was, the shortcut, the old wooden bridge stretching across the marsh. It had been closed for years. Locals said the boards were rotting. Others, well, they had different stories. But the thought of walking an extra half mile in that cold mist made me hesitate. The bridge was right there, just barely visible through the fog. So I stepped onto it. The first few steps felt normal. The boards creaked beneath my shoes. The water below lapped quietly. But as I got closer to the middle, I noticed it. The temperature dropped fast. I could see my breath, even though it hadn't been that cold a minute ago. The air felt heavier, still. Even the sound of the marsh had stopped. That's when I saw it. A dark shape at the far end of the bridge. It stood perfectly still, facing me. I took a step back. The figure took a step forward. The wood groaned under a weight that wasn't mine. Every instinct told me to turn around and run. But when I looked back, the way I'd come was gone. Where there should have been a shoreline, there was only more bridge, stretching into the fog endlessly in both directions. I felt something move behind me, a whisper right behind my ear. We only needed you halfway. I couldn't sleep. We were pet sitting at my in-laws' house, and while my husband and the dogs were asleep in the bedroom, I sat in the living room, half watching a movie, drinking coffee. The sofa faces these big sliding glass doors that open into their garden. No curtains, no blinds, just glass. Eventually, I thought about letting the dogs out. But the moment I touched the door handle, they stirred. Restless, uneasy. Not barking, just tense, like they sensed something. That's when I noticed it. Partway down the garden, near the tree line, something was standing there. At first, I thought it was just shadows, but every nerve in my body told me not to open that door. I stepped back, turned off the TV to kill the glare, and stared into the dark. That's when I saw it more clearly. It was tall, way taller than any person. Its silhouette reached halfway up the trees, and its ears were long, sharp, pointed. It wasn't still either. It swayed, not like branches moving in the wind, but like someone shifting their weight from foot to foot, watching, waiting. I froze. I didn't want to lose sight of it, but I didn't want to call out to my husband either. So I just stood there, locked in place. And then it was gone. One moment it filled the edge of the garden. The next, nothing. The dogs finally relaxed, and outside the dawn began to light the sky. But even in daylight, every time I looked out at that garden, I felt it. Something had been there, and I don't think it came to the house by mistake. I'd gone to visit my mom on school break. She lived in a quiet suburban place with her house sitting against a golf course. That night, it was just the three of us, my mom, me, and a friend I'd brought along. We were sitting at the dining room table. My mom had her back to the big glass sliding doors that looked out over the backyard, while across from her was a large wall mirror that reflected the whole view. It was late, dark outside. The kind of night where the glass acts more like a black mirror than a window. At one point, my friend excused herself to the bathroom. While she was gone, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. I froze. Out past the glass, in the yard, someone was moving. I said quietly to my mom, "There's someone outside." She whipped her head around toward me, just as my friend walked back into the room, her reflection catching in the mirror. And in that same reflection, we both saw him. An old man, easily in his 80s, maybe 90s. He walked slowly up the side of the house, his posture bent, his steps deliberate. My mom leapt up and ran outside, calling to him. We watched from the dining room table as she approached. She got within a few feet, close enough to touch his shoulder, but he didn't react. Didn't even seem to notice her. And then, in the instant she reached out her hand, he vanished. No running, no stumbling into the dark, just gone. We sat in stunned silence, staring at an empty patch of lawn. Mom came back inside, pale and shaking, insisting she'd seen him too. The man that walked right up to the house and never walked away. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I was half asleep when I heard it. A door opening, footsteps down the hallway, the sound of the shower running in the guest bathroom. I thought nothing of it. My uncle and his wife were supposed to be arriving that night from overseas. I figured they'd finally made it. The next morning, I asked my mom where my uncle was. She looked at me, confused, and then said, "What are you talking about? They're not coming until next Saturday." I checked the guest bedroom. The blankets were messed up. The shower and floor were soaked. Even the carpet outside was damp. But there was no one there. No leak, no running water, nothing to explain it. Just silence and the feeling that someone else had been in the house with us. I was waiting for a delivery, so I kept glancing out the window every few seconds just to make sure I didn't miss it. That's when I saw my neighbor. She stepped out of her house in a sharp business outfit, bag over her shoulder, travel mug in hand. She waved to another neighbor, then got into her car and drove away. Nothing unusual. But less than 2 minutes later, her front door opened again. It was her. Same face, same woman, only this time she was in workout clothes, hair tied back, wheeling a bicycle down the steps. There was no car in her driveway. No way she could have come back. I never looked away long enough for her to sneak past me. She doesn't have a twin. I know what I saw, and I still can't explain how the same person left that house twice. I live in an apartment block built in the 80s. Nothing strange in its history, and in fact, my grandparents were the first owners of our flat. Not even a pet has died here. Still, ever since I was little, I felt some kind of presence. I chalked it up to my childhood imagination, until about a year ago. It was 2 a.m. I had just gotten home from work and was cooking a late dinner, headphones on, listening to a podcast. Suddenly, I thought I heard something over the audio. I paused. It was knocking at the front door. At first, I thought maybe it was a neighbor, but it was 2 a.m, too late for a friendly visit. And this wasn't polite knocking either. It was loud, hard, desperate. I walked closer to the door. If it was really someone who needed help, they'd be pressing the doorbell too, right? But no one was. The pounding only grew heavier. And then, this cold wave of dread hit me. It didn't feel like someone asking to be let in. More like demanding it. I didn't dare look through the peephole. I didn't open the door. I just went back to the kitchen and tried to calm myself down. For a while, it went quiet. I thought maybe whoever it was had left. But later that night, the knocking came again, always stopping the second I tried to convince myself I wasn't afraid. Eventually, I told my Nan about it. That's when she mentioned something I didn't know. A woman used to live in the flat next door. She died years ago. And ever since, every tenant who moved into that apartment, something terrible has happened to them. Nan said it was probably her. that if I ever heard the knocking again, I should answer, but I never have.